So I think that, yeah, I can go along you and say that we have to take advantage of opportunities that may be offered at that level to think creatively how we can shift a number of mechanisms. And I don't know, Article 2 of the Kyoto Protocol says that we have to envisage a number of actions for mitigation that deal with improper functioning of a number of mechanisms, including taxation, including subsidies, including imperfections of the market, that, and this coming back to the question about the involvement of the private sector. If we were to shape the rules of the market in some way as to promote renewables, as to phase out a number of technologies, it would be certainly economically sound, socially and environmentally very efficient and beneficial, I would say. Now, I think that the opportunity is there, and it's not something that happens so often, is to definitely, irreversibly internalize external costs coming from the emissions. If we were to envisage an extension of the carbon market from the protocol to the convention, and there are provisions for, in the jargon, sectorial crediting, NAMAS crediting, and so on, we would go very far away and have definitely a price for carbon. And this doesn't happen very often. I mean, you know, we were used not to pay for water. Now everybody is drinking bottled water, you know. By the way, there is a Swiss parliamentarian who intends to forbid bottled water because it's nonsense. Switzerland is one of the first countries in the world that forbade lead pipes. We have an excellent quality of, anyway, this excursus has been said. You know the rationality, where the rationality comes, and I'm not going to criticize Enier because he's a village from the Canton de Vaud where I'm a citizen, but you know how much CO2 is involved in this. So, investment, signals, strategic guidance from the convention, and see how we can really shift the paradigm for decarbonization. And the Copenhagen meeting is one step, one moment that offers a lot of opportunities. As I said, extending the carbon market under the convention, giving a price to carbon, internalizing de facto externalities and so on. It's a big move for the environmentalists. It doesn't happen so often. So think about the opportunities, and we very often forget that in the jargon of the contact groups, of the AWGKP and so on. But talks have incredible consequences.
Thank you. Just before we take the next question, Halldor, I mean, we're talking about Copenhagen architecture. It won't prescribe how emissions should be cut. But I suppose that the commonest system is cap and trade, isn't it, as opposed to a carbon tax? I mean, well, the way we're going, is a carbon tax therefore harder to pursue?
Yes. No, it's very likely that the architecture coming out of Copenhagen will continue along the approach taken in Kyoto, where you basically look at outcomes. You look at the emissions coming from an economy as a whole, and then you leave it to that country to decide how they achieve it. But, and there's an important but here, there are a lot of actions that need to be coordinated to be effective, and one example of that is aviation, for example, and so there is quite possible that in addition to national caps, we will have a cap on a sector. And a very good candidate for that would be shipping and aviation. And so the model there would be, and this is already in the text, would be a cap set by the Copenhagen conference, which would then be implemented by IMO and ICAO, the competent international agencies.
This would be a global or an industry cap.
It would be a global cap
Yeah.
but that's the sensitivity, global. And that gets into this question of is there a need for differentiation when it comes to aviation? But it's very difficult to implement differentiation in aviation. Is it the owner of the airline? Is it the nationality of the passenger? Is it the point of origin? Is it the point of departure? Final destination? And so it's very difficult to achieve emission reductions in a globally integrated sector like shipping and aviation. Actually, in shipping, it's even more stark because almost all of the ships are now registered by developing countries, and so there's not much shipping left in Annex 1, and so by and large, yes, it's going to be very likely national caps implemented by. This is for the industrialized countries. Some sectoral action, but then for developing countries. Voluntary action, nationally appropriate action that would be facilitated and enabled through finance.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's take a question at the back, please.
Hello, I'm Jörg Haas. I'm at the European Climate Foundation, and I'm very much involved in Project Catalyst. You have in your folders a summary of the findings of Project Catalyst. In my previous life, yes, I have been working with Paul on that greenhouse development rights concept, and if you read both documents, there may be some structural similarities which are interesting. I would like to comment on the first round that you have made, and which ended a little bit on a pessimistic note, I would say, all in all. I mean, Halldor, Thogeirsson essentially saying, yes, we will not get where we need to be, and et cetera, and not what's required by science. Now, looking at the structure that Halldor offered, based on Albert de Boer's structure, I think we have the elements in place for an ambitious agreement. It's on the table, it's partly in the text already. It's only that the politics are not playing in favor of it. And let me offer a few thoughts what could be achieved with the necessary goodwill. Now on the targets, I think one of our major problems at the moment is that the targets that are being set and offered by developed countries are mainly oriented according to the national reduction potential. And we are looking at this with the McKinsey cost curve in mind. And in fact, the kind of, if you take the EU 20% or the US target or the Japanese target, they all are in the order of magnitude of what the McKinsey cost curve shows as domestic reduction potential. Now, a game changer would be if countries agree to say, okay, we take collectively a minus 25 or minus 30 or higher target in the range of indicated by IPCC, and share the difference between their domestic potential and that average 25% target according to some indicator of responsibility and capacity or ability to pay and polluter pays principles. That is in principle already somehow on the table, at least the EU has suggested in the MEF process, at least in Germany and France, to agree collectively on an Annex 1 target. And this would provide not the national reductions, but the carbon finance, which would go quite a long way to provide the financing for developing countries' action. Now, on the second point, on the NAMAs, I think we have in the place the language on NAMAs. What we are lacking at the moment in terms of the politics is the move from NAMAs towards very ambitious low-carbon development strategies. And to some extent, developing countries know that there is no other way to development than low-carbon development, but the politics at the moment are playing against it, and they are reluctant to embark on an ambitious strategy, maybe because they don't see the financing forthcoming yet, and they may have tactical gains, or at least they think about them.